Children, be ready for the pledge. Place your right hand on your heart and repeat. I, Shruti Narayan, commit to be vigilant and bear in mind at all times the risk to myself and my colleagues from COVID-19. I promise to take all necessary precautions that prevent the spread of this deadly virus. I promise to follow and encourage others to follow the key COVID appropriate behaviors, to always wear a mask or face cover, especially when in public places, to maintain a minimum distance of 6 feet from others, to wash my hands frequently and thoroughly with soap and water. Together, we will win this fight against COVID 19. So, children, before I begin the lesson on insulation, a brief recapitulation of what we had studied. Okay, we had studied that the sun, what is solar radiation, the heat and light given out by the sun in all directions is called solar radiation. Now, that part of the solar energy which is received by the earth is called insolation. Then we had studied about the terrestrial radiation, which means the heat. When the surface of the earth gets heated, it starts to reflect back that heat in the form of long waves, which is referred to as terrestrial radiation. Then we had studied about the heat budget. When both incoming radiation and outgoing radiation are balanced, it is called the heat budget. Now, in the recent times, this heat budget has got disturbed because the percentage of greenhouse gases has increased in the atmosphere. So, they are absorbing more terrestrial radiation than they should actually be doing, which is raising the temperature, resulting in global warming. So good morning children, we continue with the same chapter, insolation, and today we'll study about the factors which affect the temperature of a place. Now the main factors which affect the temperature of a place are latitude, altitude, distance from the sea, slope of the land, winds and ocean currents. So first let us study about latitude. So latitude, you all know, it is the angular distance of a place north or south of the equator. And all of us know that as the altitude increases, the temperature decreases. Lower the latitude, higher the temperature. Higher the latitude, lower the temperature. And the reason for this is that owing to the spherical shape of the earth, the rays of the sun are direct at the equator, and so because they are vertical, they are focused, and so they have greater heating capacity. As we move towards the poles, as you see in this diagram, the rays become slanting owing to the spherical shape of the earth, due to which the slanting rays which spread over a larger area. So because they are spread over a larger area, their heating capacity is less. So latitude greatly affects the temperature of a place. As I had already explained, the rays of the sun are vertical at the equator. So between the equator, Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, we have the Torrid Zone where the rays of the sun are vertical. So these zones, the Torrid Zone is the hottest zone. As we move beyond the equator, between the Tropic of Cancer and the Arctic Circle, we have the temperate zone where the rays are slightly slanting. Similarly, between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Antarctic Circle, we have the south temperate zone. So here also the rays of the sun are slanting, and so these are moderate zones, neither very hot nor very cold. Now beyond the Arctic Circle, meaning between the Arctic Circle and the North Pole and the Antarctic Circle and the South Pole, we have the frigid zone where the rays are absolutely slanting, which have lesser heating capacity. They are ice bound throughout the year. For 6 months, the North Polar region is in total darkness. For 6 months, the South Polar region is in total darkness. So these zones are ice-bound. The rays of the sun are very slanting. Even during 6 months of, sunlight, that time also the temperature is still very low because of the slanting rays of the sun. So children, here again I am explaining what I had already explained. In the equatorial areas in the lower latitude, as you can see, the rays of the sun are vertical. They spread over a smaller area, and if you see the thickness here in this diagram, you can see the atmosphere also. So the rays of the sun, they travel through a shorter distance of the atmosphere. So they heat up a smaller area, and that is why this results in the higher temperature. Now beyond the torrid zone, the sun's rays travel longer distance. This is because of the inclined axis, and also because of the revolution of the earth and due to the spherical shape of the earth. So much of the heat is absorbed by clouds and water vapor or reflected back by dust particles. So the sun's rays fall in a slanting position, and they travel through a greater distance of the atmosphere, and they heat up a larger area. Therefore, beyond the torrid zone, the temperature goes on falling. However, children, there are some other factors also which we'll be discussing. Now, children, an explanation of what I had already explained to all of you once again. Now, the angle of the sun's rays. If the rays of the sun are direct or if the rays of the sun are vertical, they are focused over a small area, so they have greater heating capacity. Whereas when the rays of the sun are slanting, during that time what happens is, because the rays of the sun are spread over a larger area, so the heat gets diffused, it spreads over a larger area, so the heating capacity is less. Now children, I would also like to draw your attention about vertical rays and the slanting rays season wise also. Now if you remember, during June, you can never think of standing out in the sun because the rays of the sun are direct and they are focused, they have greater heating capacity. Alright, now as we are approaching the winter season, these days we are approaching the winter season, you can see how the heating capacity of the sun is going on getting reduced day by day, because now the northern hemisphere is getting tilted away from the sun, so the rays of the sun are becoming more and more slanting. The slanting rays spread over a larger area, so they have lesser heating capacity. The second factor which influences the temperature of a place is the altitude. Altitude means the height of a place above the sea level. So the temperature of the atmosphere and altitude are interrelated. Higher the altitude, lower the temperature. That is why children, you see that during the summer season, lot of people go to the hilly areas, to the mountains, to get some respite from the heat of the plains. So at lower altitude, what happens is the air is dense. If you remember, in the previous chapter we had studied that as the height goes on increasing, the density of the air goes on decreasing. So in the plain areas, the air is dense, it is much more compact, and it has greater ability to absorb heat. That is why the temperature is high. But as the altitude goes on increasing, the density of the air goes on decreasing. The air is less compact, it has lesser ability to absorb heat, and therefore it has lower temperature. So, air is cooler at higher altitudes than on Earth's surface. The main reason for decrease of temperature with height is that the air is heated more from below, that is by terrestrial radiation, than by incoming solar radiation. This we had already studied when we had done the heat balance. If you remember, we had studied that the atmosphere absorbs 34 units of the Earth's radiation, and it absorbs only 14 units of the sun's incoming radiation. Alright, so this is one reason. The second is that air on the surface of the earth, meaning in the plain areas, is much more denser. Obviously, when it is much more denser, it contains more carbon dioxide, water vapor, and other gases. So the heat absorption capacity is more in the lower layers than in the upper layers, where the density of the air is less. So as I already told you, if you see in this diagram on the left hand side, you will see that the air molecules, they are more closely packed. The air is much more denser in the lower altitude. As the height goes on increasing, the air molecules, if you see, they are not so closely packed. They are loosely packed. Alright, so that is why in the lower altitude, the heat absorption is more because the amount of carbon dioxide, water vapor is more. But as the height goes on increasing, the air becomes less denser, and so its capacity to absorb heat also goes on decreasing.
So in order to explain you the phenomena of lapse rate, this is an area, alright, this is a hilly area. Let us say this is at sea level, alright, this is at sea level, 0 meters, the temperature is 27 degrees centigrade. Now lapse rate is the fall in temperature at a rate of 1 degree centigrade for every 166 meters increase in height. So when the altitude increases by 166 meters, the temperature falls to 26 degrees centigrade. Further, with the increase in height at 332 meters, the temperature falls to 25 degrees centigrade. So this is lapse rate, fall in temperature with the increase in height.
The third factor is the distance from the sea, which again plays a very important role in influencing the temperature of a place. Now, when we talk about the heating capacity of the land and the land heats up much more faster, whereas the water takes a long time to get heated up, and it takes a longer time to cool down also, whereas the land heats up much more faster and it loses heat also very fast. So the sun's rays pass through water to a great depth. Water, as you all know, especially in the seas and all, it is mobile, and the water mixes easily with cold water. The warm water mixes with cold water easily. Because of these reasons, the water is neither heated nor cooled quickly. However, the sun's rays heat a piece of land much more rapidly because, unlike water, the heat obtained by the area remains confined to that area, and it does not get mixed up like water with other areas of land. The land is solid in nature. So the land gets heated or cooled much more quickly than the water. So, children, the sea greatly exerts a moderating influence on the climate of a coastal area. So, if the place is located close to the sea, then the place has equable or maritime climate because of the moderating influence of the land and the sea breeze. Whereas if the place is located far away from the sea, then it experiences extreme or continental type of climate in which the summers are very hot and the winters are very cold. Like Lucknow experiences a continental type of climate. We have extremes. During the summer season, the temperature becomes very high. During winters, again, you can see how the temperature is going on becoming lower and lower day by day these days. So children, I already told you that the coastal areas have equable or maritime or insular type of climate because of the moderating influence of the sea. So let us study because of I had already explained it to you that the heating capacity of the land and the sea is different. So due to this difference in the heating capacity, due to this difference in the rate of heating and cooling of the land and the sea, the land breeze and the sea breeze are generated. So first let us understand the sea breeze. During the daytime, the land gets intensely heated. Alright, so because it has lower specific heat capacity, so it heats up faster. Therefore, when the temperature is high, the air above it also becomes warm, which makes the air less dense, so the air starts to rise, resulting in low pressure. Comparatively, the sea is colder or cooler, and the air above it is cool because the temperature is low, so there is high pressure. Now, winds always blow from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. So, because of this difference in pressure, the winds start to blow from the sea towards the land. So, this is termed as the sea breeze. So, it does not allow the daytime temperature to be high in the coastal areas. So, that is why the temperature is not very high even during the summer season in the coastal areas. At night, the situation is reverse. The sea becomes warmer. It took the entire day to get warmed up. So, the sea now has low pressure. The land loses heat rapidly, so it has high pressure. So, when the air becomes cool, it becomes dense and heavy, so it starts to exert more pressure. So, there is high pressure above the land and there is low pressure over the sea. Now, the winds start to blow from the land towards the sea. This is termed as the land breeze. Thus, the interchange of breeze maintains the heat balance. Therefore, the areas which are close to the sea have lower daily range of temperature and lower annual range of temperature, and they enjoy a moderate climate. So children, if you see this map of India, just an example, the places which are located in the interior like Delhi, Lucknow, we experience extreme or continental type of climate because we are far away from the moderating influence of the sea. Whereas the coastal areas like Chennai, Mumbai, they experience equable type of climate because they come under the moderating influence of the land and the sea breeze.